All Signals present Countdown to Justice, where we pit Batman versus Superman. 7 rounds, 7 episodes examining 5 decades of these two iconic superheroes represented on celluloid, in anticipation for the upcoming Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. Which superheroes film series will emerge victorious? Stay tuned and find out.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Countdown to Justice. This is round 5. I'm joined, as always, with Luis Duran.
Good evening.
And Chris Morgan.
Good evening.
Tonight, we're putting Superman Returns against Batman Begins. And I think we should start off with Chris. What are your thoughts on... Jeez, who...
Are you asking me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the one who gets to pick?
Mm-hmm.
When Rich and I got together and we decided we were going to do this, and I always thought that getting through rounds 3 and 4 were going to be the worst. Superman Returns, I will see any of the movies. I will see any of the Burton films that I said I actively hated before I'd see Superman Returns again. It's fucking painful. I mean, if we sound beaten, it's because we were. The movie was 2 hours and 34 minutes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just awful. It didn't deserve the John Williams theme. It did not deserve to have that be used. And the worst part about it, oh God, where to start with the worst part about it? The worst part about it for me is we always talk about missed potential. And Kevin Spacey would have been a really, really, really good Lex Luthor if he did not try to mimic Gene Hackman. Because, all right, to put the movie in context, Superman Returns takes place after Superman 2. Supposedly, in the 30 years since Superman 2, or I guess 25 years when this movie is made, between Superman 2 and this movie, what was supposed to be 25 years actually turned out to be 5 years. And in that time, Lex Luthor has been in jail, got out because Superman wasn't able to go to the court hearing, right?
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Even though he escaped with Miss Tessmacher in Superman 2, so automatically, for any reason, even if Superman wasn't at court, he should have gotten more than 5 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's bullshit off the hint. So Superman decided to go back to Krypton, and in hopes of finding it, because astronomers said they thought they found it, and they didn't. He comes back, and Lois Lane has been engaged for about supposedly 5 years, has a child, and won a Pulitzer for writing an article called "Why the World Doesn't Need Superman." And the rest of the movie is basically a derivative retelling of the first movie, just not nearly as good. You know, once again, it's a real estate scam by Lex Luthor. He wants to take one of the crystals. And what they did in the Fortress of Solitude in the Arctic, where the fortress is made of ice, he decides to create a new continent based on whatever is at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, which we saw was a lot of dead fish. And it's pretty awful. And the worst scene in the whole movie to me should have been the best scene. And he in order to create this continent, he wraps a piece, one of the crystals, inside a hollowed out tube of kryptonite. So basically, the continent he's building, a larger version of the Fortress of Solitude out of whatever's at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, is going to have kryptonite built into it. So when Superman finally goes to confront Lex at the end, he is on a continent of kryptonite, so he's weakened. So Lex Luthor starts kicking him and yelling at him, and you really get the fact that Lex Luthor's really frustrated by Superman, and then he takes a shard of kryptonite and shanks him and breaks it off, and that scene should have been so good, but it wasn't deserved. It was based on movies that nobody's seen at that point in 25 years, now 35 years. And that scene was not deserved at all, given this movie. This movie was just derivative. It was built on being derivative. It's supposed to be a direct sequel to Superman 2. It was just winks and nods to the first film, back and forth, and lines. It ripped off lines. It ripped off scenes. It was just completely derivative of the first movie, without any of the charm, without any of the originality, without anything. It was just an awful fucking movie. I wanted to kind of give a little, because we talked about the other films, and I really wanted to kind of give people an idea, our lovely viewing audience, as to what this movie was about. Because we're going to tear this fucking thing apart, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of tearing.
Yeah, there's plenty of material here to talk about, and I think you touched on a lot of good points, Chris. One of the main things I was going to say is the lack of originality, and I would even say it's not even just derivative. It's a flat out rip off. They completely rip off the soundtrack, Marlon Brando, and all the themes that they could have easily just used new ones, but the whole, Son of God, saving the world and everything like that was just so excessive. Even the part I'm just realizing now with the shard of kryptonite when Superman gets stabbed, that's exactly like when Jesus Christ was stabbed with the spear.
Oh yeah.
And like the whole imagery of him when he finally brings the island of kryptonite mass into space and then chucks it, and we get the Christ-like image of the crucifixion. Besides that, they completely could not come up with anything original. And besides, having a Superboy in the fold after 5 years,
it was completely. That kid had no reason to be in that movie, except to create. Didn't even really create tension with her fiance. Like I think he still left this movie believing that kid is his son.
Yeah, everyone. Well, the only people that know the audience, I would say, Superman and Lois.
I'm pretty sure little Jason knows as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, little Jason definitely knows. I mean, they were really, really, considering they left that huge plot that they subplot throughout the entire movie. Considering that subplot, considering Mrs. And I love you, Parker Posey, you're a great actress, but Kitty was not Miss Tessmacher. And so this movie left Lex and Kitty on an island, and this dangling subplot of this family weirdo triangle open. They really were thinking this was going to be a blockbuster, and they were going to rush a sequel out to this thing. They had to.
Yeah, that's the only explanation.
All they left open, they had to.
But yeah, but to go back one thing, also the length of the movie, for all the good things that Superman 1 and 2 did, and I would watch 3 again and 4 just to have not seen this one, was the fact that all the iconic images and from the action the cover of the Action Comics picture to the whole it's a bird, it's a bird, it's a plane, no, it's whatever it is, and it just failed so miserably that it just took, I'm pretty sure, all of us out of the movie. Whereas 30 years ago, of course, in the 70s or in the early 80s, when Superman 1 and 2 did do it in the movies, it was a little more charming because we understood that the audiences were used to that kind of dialogue, but it was still fresh. Now this is 30 years aged, that it shouldn't have no place in the plot at all or in dialogue, period, for me.
I don't even think that they tried to make that dialogue work either. It's just like, it was more of it seemed like it was a case of, we have to put this in. Who cares if it clicks or not? It's for the fans.
All right, you kind of have to understand, like, when Superman the movie came out, I mean, really what a landmark undertaking that had been, because I don't think, because there was a really, in the 30s or 40s, there was a Batman TV show. Mm-hmm. And then there was a Superman TV show, and Batman was also a radio program, and then that god awful. I don't like the 60s Batman show. I hate the Batusi and all that crap. So Superman 1978, first time we see the tagline was, "You will believe a man can fly," or something similar to that. I mean, we had the new effects that Star Wars in 2001 and all the movies had brought prior to that. So opening up with the fourth wall of that movie, where you open up where it opens up with the Action Comics, and then you see the facade, and then I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, where the camera pans up above the model of the Daily Planet, and transitions to the modern special effects, and the curtains open, close up, disappear, where you see the spacescape, and in the movie where you subvert the truth, justice, and the American way, where he says that, and Lois is like, well, you're going to have to basically battle a bunch of elected officials or something like that.
Yeah.
All those things were really charming. That fourth wall, the nodding, the subverting of the expectations, the winking at the audience was so charming, because this was a landmark film. No, I'm sorry. Superman, let me clarify. Superman 1978 was a landmark film. This thing was not landmark. I'm sorry, you were in the middle of something, but...
Oh, no. You completely went with my point that Superman Returns, they, like you said, it had none of the charm, and I don't even think it really tried to have that charm. Like, it was almost like an aborted fan letter to, like, the previous movies. Where like they he couldn't decide what he was trying to do, whether it was an homage or a straight ripoff or anything, and just kind of tried to spackle it up with the soundtrack and Marlon Brando being plastered everywhere.
It was kind of like the one of the big mistakes of, like, with the prequel trilogies, were that Lucas knew that Star Wars was such a part of the lexicon that everybody knew it. He, instead of trying to integrate that into the story, that's the problem with Singer with this one, is he kind of assumed everybody's favorite movies were Superman 1 and 2, that everybody had seen them, and that he didn't really have to explain much. He didn't really need to give any kind of, like, exposition to the whole thing.
Because if nobody told, if you didn't hear somebody talk about how they're supposed to take place after Superman 2, because it makes no attempt to really, I don't think they do enough, they don't do any callbacks, but they do too many homages. Like, maybe if they had some rebuilding going on after Zod and Ursa and other guy had flown through, or maybe even some like talking about some of the things that Lex did, because at this point they kind of left it up in the air. Like when he ran into Lois, it's like, oh, just like old times, and they never really, like, they just, I don't know.
Lex Luthor reprogrammed 2 nuclear missiles.
Yeah.
How does he get 5 years from that? As a character witness or not?
It's like, even if Superman didn't show up, they should have been like, yeah, we're never letting him out. Never.
Yeah, but that's part of that's the modus operandi for this movie, though. It goes so far out of its way to completely fabricate these kind of stories or start things and then never give us a good reason why. Nobody knows where Clark Kent was.
No.
Saw llamas and that's about it. 5 years. No story ever presented to Perry White.
Yeah.
I still can't figure out who Perry White's nephew or Richard does, except he's a pilot for some reason.
Yeah.
He just had a plane,
He had a plane. He was the reason that Cyclops died so quickly. And I'm sorry, spoilers for X-Men 3. Cyclops died so quickly in X-Men 3. It's because he had to go film this shit.
I think that's the one thing that I cannot forgive for this movie, is taking Cyclops out of X-Men Last Stand.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The biggest crime of this movie is what it did to the X-Men franchise. Yeah. Though, I think the act of contrition of Days of Future Past did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That made everything okay in my book. But to go back though, I couldn't stand what they did to the characters, because they made Lois so. They dumbed her down. Well, I mean, she was. I guess they kind of if you think about it, she always was putting herself in stupid situations in the first movie.
She has a kid.
But yeah, and now she has a kid, and she includes the kid in this.
Yeah, but
for some reason.
But Lois was absent-minded. She couldn't spell, which of course they had to make a nod to that.
That was so forced. Yeah, that was so forced.
She couldn't. She had a hard time spelling it. It wasn't because she was stupid. It's just because she was always 2 steps ahead of where she was. Mm-hmm. Also, the fact that there was a scene in Superman, the movie, where she was saying that her sister has like 2 cats, 3 children, and a mortgage, and blah, that life, no way. The charm. First of all, I think I have nothing against Kate Bosworth as an actress, but she was awful, Lois Lane.
Yeah, definitely.
She was terrible.
Not a good pick.
I think Brandon Routh was a terrible Clark Kent, and maybe a terrible Superman.
But the thing is, then that's the problem with him, is he did a really good Christopher Reeve impression, but he was never given the chance to make Superman his own. He had to try to do Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
As Kevin Spacey had to try and do Gene Hackman.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what this movie was. It's just another... It's Bryan Singer just giving great homage to the Richard Donner film. But going back to the Brandon Roth and him playing Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent, it was just, there was nothing endearing about him and Lois. I saw no connection when they were interacting at all, whether he was Clark or Superman, compared to Christopher Reeve and what was
Margot Kidder.
Yeah, I just couldn't see any good interaction between any of the characters.
There's no chemistry.
Yeah, there's no chemistry at all.
I mean, the funny thing is, she had more chemistry with Richard.
Yeah,
who's played by
James Marsden.
More chemistry with him, than she did with Clark Kent or Superman, yet they kept staring longingly at each other, and you're like, I don't really fucking buy any of this shit.
No.
It all seems so forced.
Congratulations, Brian. You made some phenomenal X-Men movies, but you outdid Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher and Richard Lester and whoever the fuck directed Superman 4 Quest for Peace. You really beat us down. I mean...
I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm in shock a little bit.
I am too. I'm exhausted after watching this film. And I thought, like, Batman Forever was going to be exhausting, and, no, this movie was really exhausting. It was, like, so heavy-handed. I mean, it's more heavy-handed than Superman 4 Quest for Peace is
anti-nuclear weapon.
Okay, all right. In Superman 3 and in Superman 4, okay, we took the 2 plot elements that they completely ignored or washed over or just gave lip service to, or whatever. And the 3 of us constructed what those 2 movies could have been. Now, in the middle, I'm putting Louis on the spot here. In the middle of Superman Returns, you said something like, that there's a good movie, that you saw a potential movie in here, and I didn't see it, so I was purposely waiting to put you on the spot for the podcast. So please.
Yeah, I probably spoke a little too soon, but I think you could have had a very good story with Superman leaving for 5 years, coming back, seeing that not knowing that he has a kid or not with Lois. If they were to build on that, and with Kevin Spacey finding out earlier in the film, I think it could have developed into something better. The whole landmass thing, the crystals and all that, I never liked it when I first saw it. Of course, I still don't like it today. But if they were to twist that story around, I think a little bit better, it would have been good. But I still can't find that much substance in this, though. I mean, considering the lack of originality and everything, like how much all that.
You actually, I see where you're going with this now. Because if they did want to make a sequel to Superman 2, have Lex Luthor escape from prison again. Make the movie about Lex Luthor's revenge. Now, like you said, have Lex Luthor be in prison and have him find out when Superman comes back right away. And then all of a sudden he's like got motivation to get out of prison, to rebuild his empire, to get revenge on Superman. And then throw in somebody like Kitty so you have somebody to vomit expository dialogue to kind of recap the first two movies.
He definitely needed a better supporting cast with his criminal quote unquote empire instead of like those mute thugs that he had follow him around everywhere.
Oh yeah, there were straight archetypes because you had the guy in the leather jacket, and the other guy with the beanie hat playing pool.
Nah.
You got the minority guy Cal Penn that knows all the technology and everything like that. He's putting everything together.
Oh yeah,
driving the ship or the yacht. For some reason, the yacht can traverse Arctic waters and everything. No big deal.
Yeah,
but regardless.
Yeah, wow, I didn't even think about that.
All just straight archetypes.
Yeah, I mean, Cal. You said that Cal Penn. I don't remember Cal Penn having any lines. You said that he did.
I think he had one, maybe two.
Okay,
maybe two.
I mean, he's a good-looking guy, but he's a better actor than just showing us his face for like 2.5 hours or however long he was in the movie. I mean, said,
there was even a perfect chance for him to, like, I don't know, maybe say something funny, like when they send him out to be the one to drop that little shard of crystal into the water, into the middle of the model train set.
That was his line. Lex is like, when he's shaving the bit off the crystal, he's like, "Be careful." And doesn't he say like, "I am"?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Cal Penn's like, "So glad I got House after this."
So time to leave this and do another Harold and Kumar movie.
Yes. Oh my God. Seriously, I've only seen the first Harold and Kumar movie. I haven't seen the other two. I heard they were good. They got to be better than this movie.
Yeah,
most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you guys think of supporting characters? Any memorable ones?
See, that's hard too, because again, it's like I don't see Kitty, I don't see Parker Posey. I see somebody trying to be Miss Tessmacher. They even co-opted one of her lines. What did my father say to me? Get out. That's exactly what Valerie Perrine said in the first movie.
If she was trying to be Miss Tessmacher, she had to have been way more useful than what she, instead of just like glorified wallpaper.
Yeah.
Miss Tessmacher, she got into the thick of it. Like, she was the linchpin for a lot of his plans, especially in the second movie.
Yeah, she was. But she was such a... I mean, you had Ned... And I know you hated Ned Beatty's character. But, she wasn't stupid. But she was kind of going along with Lex, and then once she realized, the stakes Lex was really going to do, she was kind of like, all right, I'm kind of in, you could get this sense that Valerie Perrine never considered that he was as dangerous as he was.
Yeah.
And with this one, Kitty watched him rip off some lady when she died, leave him, came back, saw that one of her dogs ate the other dog. I mean, she knew, like...
And then she even stayed with him when he was doing the whole, no, billions will die. Not billions, always underestimating me. And then decides to stop him by potentially causing an even worse accident by dropping all of the crystals into the fucking ocean.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't know that those crystals weren't going to roll off the whatever kind of continent.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I just thought of this. If, all that stuff grew from the sediment from whatever on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, that was a pretty big mass.
Yeah,
okay?
It's huge.
So he went under that to the core and lifted all that up. So, so now all of a sudden you've got, the Atlantic Ocean than it was before.
Well, that's Superman not thinking about the his actions
all
when he's saving the world.
His actions. Honestly, he should have just turned back time and saved us all the trouble. And never came back.
Nah. Shouldn't have come back. I'll just spend another 5 years out in space.
Seriously.
Dodging child support.
Hey, speaking of child support, let's talk about...
Superman's a dick.
Let's talk about little Jason Superman's first kill.
Oh, yeah.
No, no kids got beaten in this film.
However, the kids finally fought back. With, like, the most cartoonish kill I think they've had in any of these films. But landing a piano on top of the guy that was trying to kill his mother.
Yeah, the only way to top that is if he actually picked up the piano and dropped it on him.
Yeah.
But, wow.
Yeah, he just pushed it.
Yeah. Just chuck that sucker. And
I mean, it is a Warner Brothers movie, and Warner Brothers does own Bugs Bunny. So having a 5-year-old kill somebody in a Bugs Bunny way.
I do find it, it was very interesting that they wrote that in there. Let's let this kid murder this guy instead of, incapacitating him.
Yeah. And, like, they never, like, Lois never brings it up ever again.
Yeah, she just, no, my baby's an angel. Richard's kid. I never
She's just
slept
like
with Superman.
It's like, for somebody who's pissed off with Superman lying to her, she lies a lot during this movie.
Yeah,
just to keep her sanity.
And she's like totally like. Apparently, her and Richard had this long engagement, and if Superman's been gone for 5 years and she had the kid, who actually should have been around 4, and he's a pretty big 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Richard's been. So she can't. So they met. So she either just had a kid or she was pregnant, and he agreed to be father. And she's never married this guy. She's moved in with them. They have a little island with the seaplane outside, apparently, a house. And this guy wants to spend his life with this woman, and they're still engaged.
She's holding him at arm's length.
Oh my god!
And then, like,
such a horrible person.
I know. And then when Superman comes back, she's very obviously falling for him again, and then just keeps trying to keep him around by assuring him that no, it's nothing. It's in the past. It's in the past. This is your kid. Right. It's in the past.
Well, I can't blame her too much considering the fact that Superman's everywhere that she is. Like, we know that she's outside. He's outside waiting for her in the bushes. He's watching her through
That bothered me. Like, Superman can fly, and then he purposely lands in the bushes and does like the creeper peek
with his X-ray vision.
Yeah, to watch Lois cook dinner for her family.
Yeah, he does use his X-ray vision to watch her go up the elevator shaft. So he can purposely go out, be Superman, and then meet her at the rooftop. And this happens on so many occasions that I'm just thinking that it's mostly Superman. He's just being a dick.
Well, we were talking about, like, in the other movies, how, like, in the Burton films, Batman started as a dick and got better.
Yeah.
And Superman started great, and he just got to be more creepy. Wow. If you could say one thing about this film,
it keeps the trend going.
It really surpassed that trend. It took Lois with him.
Yeah, I guess if Batman Begins had taken place within the same universe as the other previous 4 films, like, he would be like a saint.
Yeah, he would use passive resistance. He'd be like the Gandhi of superheroes.
He would just show up and everybody would lay down their guns and arrest themselves, and walk themselves into prison.
I was just, because I watched Archer last night, and I was just thinking, like, with Richard, with Lois making googly eyes at, here's a great crossover, with, I kept thinking of that one where Mallory's like, where Lana's, Cyril's still dating Mallory, or Cyril's still dating Lana, and Archer saves the day, and Mallory wants Cyril to become a
field agent.
A field agent. So, for whom Lana's loins will get frothy for. If Mallory was Mallory instead of Perry White, then she would have strapped some balls onto Richard because, he was, that poor, on the one hand, you want to be like that poor guy, you're being led by, I almost said Mallory, by Lois. But on the other hand, it's like, dude, you're such a moron. Really?
Yeah.
He should have just cut and run.
He should have.
Yeah, as soon as Superman came back, you'd be like, damn it. Like, I had a good run. I'm going to need that ring back, though, because you got Superman. So
Lois, I'm going to need you and Jason to move out of the house.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I'll give you a couple weeks to find a new place.
he's got an island, he's got a mansion, he's got a seaplane. Oh man, he could be up to his eyeballs. I mean, he could really be archering it.
I mean, he deserved better than that.
Yeah, how great would that be if that was a sort of, if we could write it different? That he just finally, after 5 years, you see him like get home and he's just like, thank God. He's like, kid's not mine. I don't know what about. Like, I got a job in a plane. Like, thank you, Superman. It's like,
it's like he goes on his own 5-year spirit search, like Clark did.
I just inherited the Daily Globe. Daily Planet. I've just inherited the Daily Planet. I'm selling it to CNN because print is dead, and
just counting his billions.
Seriously. Oh my God.
Yeah, I feel bad for these guys, man.
And I'm sorry for anybody who doesn't watch Archer, and we were just giving this esoteric, But seriously, yeah, watch Archer. Don't watch this movie.
Yeah, like he was saying, none of the supporting cast really had. I have a hard time trying to find reasons to care about Superman and Lois Lane, and they're supposed to be our main characters throughout this whole thing.
Yeah,
I pretty much hated everybody in this movie. I absolutely positively did. I hated this movie. This gets a failing grade.
Actually, there's one person I didn't hate, and that was Ma Kent.
All right, Ma Kent. You can never hate Ma Kent.
No.
None of this was her fault.
Mm-mm. And what was with Lois having 2 different colored eyes? Was that a thing in the previous movies that I missed, or
did one of her contacts fall out?
I think that could just be her. Maybe
the actress,
unless the lighting just played the trick on it or something, or who knows? I don't know.
Or maybe the consequences of having sex with a Kryptonian.
Or giving birth. I mean, she gave birth to half Kryptonian and half...
so now one of her eyes is that clear, that crystal blue.
But then, shouldn't the kid's eye be one of... if he's a hybrid, shouldn't he have one color eye and the other be different from the other eye? Why would it be Lois?
Maybe, yeah, who knows? Maybe it's just Kate Bosworth. Maybe she just has that.
I kind of want to Google that. It is a thing, yeah.
Might as well Google it,
yeah. Let's Google it while we're talking.
Well, at least that makes this movie just maybe...
That was the most interesting scene. Yeah,
that was the most interesting scene in the movie. We're just like, oh, okay. But of course, as many things, it doesn't lead to anything. None of this matters. Nothing matters.
Oh, yeah. Just...
It's like the point system, and whose line is it anyway?
Yeah.
Here's a picture of Kate Bosworth, and...
Oh, that's the first
Holy
thing
crap,
that comes up.
Wait, hold on a second. Look. She does. One of her eyes is like half blue and half brown, and the other one's brown. So everybody, y'all listening to us, Google Kate Bosworth and look at her eyes. It's much more interesting than this movie. I'm telling you. All right.
Yeah, sporting. I got nothing. There's really Ma Kent. Yeah, I give her credit for her, just being there. But
I mean, as much as I really wanted Batman to Returns to end, or like when I was sitting there going, "Oh my God, will this movie end?" I'll take. Oh my God, if you give me the choice, I'll see that movie again. I mean, at least the soundtrack was good. At least we liked Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Alfred wasn't in this to save this movie.
No,
Michael Gough wasn't in this movie to save this movie.
I would have loved for him to make a cameo at some point.
Oh my God,
just to put Superman in his place.
Seriously, oh my God, seriously, because Michael Gough is still alive at this point, so he could have been in this movie. He could have just shown up and been like, "You're an insufferable cock. I have lived through Val Kilmer, and you are completely insufferable."
You know what? He wouldn't have put Superman in his place, but he would have gotten Richard White the fuck out of there.
Yeah, that's true.
He would have showed up and been like, you have a mansion, a seaplane, and intend to inherit a lot of money. Do you need a butler?
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I made you a suit of armor downstairs.
I took the liberty of 3D printing this uniform for you, sir.
We can mod up your seaplane. Have you ever thought of maybe being, I don't know, a seaman or maybe an Aquaman? You never thought about talking to fish?
Well, if I was Aquaman, I'd be pretty pissed at what Superman did. And Kevin Spacey. Or Lex Luthor.
See, there you go. That's your movie. Yeah,
it's like, oh, he's fucked. He's on the tiniest island ever. It's like that last scene should have been Aquaman just walking out of the border and be like, time to go to court. But I was exonerated, not with the sea.
Yeah, someone should face judgment for this movie, especially Bryan Singer, of course.
I don't know. I was sitting there watching this movie. I'm like, wow, this is the man who made The Usual Suspects, X-Men, X2, and would go on to make Days of Future Past. Oh, he made Apt Pupil, which was a good movie. Wow, did he fall from grace on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a studio. It was just a lot of rewrites. Who knows?
I think it was kind of his hubris, too. He really... I just don't think he really grasped... I don't think he could see past his own love for this first two movies.
Yeah.
Wow.
So shall we move on to Batman Begins?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
All right, Lou, Chris gave the rundown of it, and maybe give one for the listeners for Batman Begins.
Okay, so Batman Begins starts the Christopher Nolan Batman franchise, and this actually proves to be a much better origin story than what we've seen in the past films, where it always centered around Bruce's parents getting killed, and of course that is the origin for, I would say, Bruce Wayne's comeuppance. But in this one, we see an older Bruce, kind of lost in his ways, trying to find justice in his own terms, and it leads him to finally the League of Shadows once Ra's al Ghul speaks to him in a prison, climbs the mountain, does the whole journeyman thing. I love the fact that they included the martial arts training, ninja training, the theatricality and deception that we really didn't see. We saw very little of it in, I'd say, probably the first Batman and a little in the second one, and obviously the third and fourth kind of parody, all that. But it leads us to Bruce Wayne coming into Gotham as Batman. And from there, I mean, I'm just giving synopsis at this point. But I'd say with the things that I caught really well is that, you know, you get a time frame. He's 7 years gone.
2 years longer than Superman.
Yeah, 2 years longer than Superman. And one of the coolest things that I would say is, of course, sadly they do have the scenes with the parents getting shot and everything, which is fine. Since it's a revamp of the original, but we see Thomas Wayne outside of that getting shot. That's one thing that I really did enjoy. That there's at least 3 or 4 scenes interaction with young Bruce and Thomas Wayne, and it gave you a good instance of what his justifications were, what he's striving to accomplish. And it carries over into the film very, very well.
It definitely gave a good idea of why the Waynes were so important to Gotham City. Instead of just kind of everybody paying like a little bit of lip service to like, oh, your parents were great. Sucks what happened to them.
There's that weird little bit of exposition in the train where they're going to the opera, and little Bruce is like, "Is that where?" Sees Wayne Tower and goes, "Is that where you worked at?" You know, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, in the real world, he probably would have known that, but by the same token, like you were saying, in order to show the effect of who Thomas Wayne was, that he really was a philanthropist. You know, it kind of gave a nod to who Bruce would be, because he's just like, "Is that where you work?" And he goes, "No, I work down at the hospital. I leave the running of the company to Better Man." And he's like, "Better?" He goes, "Well, more interested men." In other words, he's like, yeah, he built Wayne Tower as the unofficial center of Gotham City, but he doesn't want to deal with that. He wants to create...
He wants to help people.
He wants to get his hands dirty. He wants to physically be there. It says so much in such a little scene about that character.
Yeah, I think in the same scene, they're riding the train, and he says, it's to, I forgot the exact words, but I kind of paraphrase it here, that the train connects the city. It unites them. So it was Thomas, it's a great way of, showing that Thomas Wayne wants to bring everyone together as philanthropists do, and just a better community from everyone. Like, everyone's hands should be in the pot, providing for them, and it shows that they say I think in the movie that there has been 8 generations, I think, of
6, I believe,
or 6,
yeah.
6 in Wayne Manor.
Yeah.
So of course they've had close ties with Gotham, and I love that about the film. Sadly, we didn't see much from Martha Wayne at all.
Yeah, she didn't really say much.
In these things, the mothers really get the shaft. I mean, except for Martha Kent. But even Alfred, when he shows when they go down to where the caverns were below Wayne Manor, he's like saying, your great grandfather used this as part of the underground for the Civil War.
Yeah.
I mean, like the Waynes for
they've
generations.
always been helping people.
Yeah, and fighting the good fight against oppression and bigotry and
Yeah, it's all ingrained. It's part of the Wayne name, which Michael Caine says later in the film. It all carries weight.
Like, especially in that scene where Bruce is talking about how he doesn't feel like the manor's his, and he wants to tear it down brick by brick, and like Alfred fights himself and bitch slapping him down the stairs. Yeah. It's like, you hush your mouth.
Yeah, and like with the party, it's just like you were saying, Louis. It's like this is your father's name. It's your father's name. It's all that's left of him. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that shows great imagery at the end. We know with the Wayne Manor burning down, but Bruce says, we're going to rebuild it brick by brick, and of course, with Alfred coming in saying, it is your manor now. It's like, we should probably get some renovations in the cave. Like,
right over on the East Wing.
Yeah, right around the East Wing. It's like, but that becomes an addition. He incorporates his history. Like, finally says that he is Bruce. Like Bruce, he's Wayne.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's now we're gonna add on to the legacy, and the legacy is gonna be Batman.
I mean, we were talking about in the first Batman how we felt that Burton understood the aesthetic to a point. That whoever wrote the films had a cursory understanding of the characters. But when Goyer, because I'm not going to make any pretenses. I mean, this is one of my favorite movies, and I'll elaborate on the others when we get there. But I was reading when they were the book on all the scripts, and Goyer's section about when Nolan wanted to do this movie, and he brought Goyer on board. Goyer went down to the local comic book store and started, getting all these Batman graphic novels. And the guy's like, "You writing a Batman movie?" And Goyer's like, just kind of walks off, like doesn't say anything. And in the original special edition of the DVD, they had the sections of where they got certain things, like from year one, from Long Halloween. There's like a couple other ones that they specifically drew from, paid homage to, included things from, without ever really winking at the audience or being or in any kind of ironic way. Like when he's trying to break Rachel out of Arkham, and he has that little Sonic thing where he gets the bat. That's from year one.
Yeah. Or when Scarecrow's riding around on the back of a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, reading the comics, it pays homage, but it makes it its own. Like Nolan made it his own,
fits within
and Goyer
the story.
made it his own.
Yeah.
And they don't say like, "Oh, we're taking this idea, we're crafting it, and we're going to tell it a different way," which is always. I mean, no story is really original if you start to think about it long enough, but you can always tell it a different way. And this one did a great job at telling it a different way, even from the start with the League of Shadows. I mean, that was one thing that I loved about this series, that it would play such a huge role, and it does play in the animated series, in the Justice League series, and it was great to see, finally a villain that we haven't seen. Great that they didn't start off with Joker again.
Nope.
Yeah.
Or, Two-Face, or anything that we've seen already on film, and to do something a little obscure as Ra's al Ghul, I would say. And League of Shadows, which Batman got his training from.
And to have it still be a threat even after, because even though he thinks, because when Ducard finally reveals himself as Ra's al Ghul, he makes that whole speech about how you can't really kill an idea, and that even though he leaves him for dead in the train, even if he is fully dead, there's still always going to be somebody there.
Well, that's what I got at the beginning, because he said, where he's like, I'm merely Ducad, and you go there and Ken Watanabe, introduce him, and I'm sitting there thinking, is this how they're getting around the immortal thing? Whoever's, because of the symbol, like you were saying, Rich, that whoever was in charge of the League of Shadows was now the Ra's al Ghul, which in Arrow, that's the way it. In the TV show Arrow.
Oh, that's the way they're doing it?
That's the way they're doing it.
That's cool.
But, I got to remember to write spoiler for Arrow. But, yeah, so.
Which I like that idea, and I love how, getting a bit ahead of myself, I like how Bruce decides to take Batman in the same direction. So that possibly, generations from now, you'll still have Batman fighting against Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. The cool thing was, and I didn't notice this as many times as I've seen this movie. My wife Beth, she thought it was interesting that the League focused on the League, kind of projected Ducad, Ra's al Ghul projected himself onto Bruce. He saw the man wanting to avenge his parents. He saw the angry kid, but it was, I never really noticed it. It was right in front of you. It's just they heard what he did, but they didn't see what he did. He heard that, the first time I had to steal so I wouldn't starve to death. In what he that's what he's telling Ducad, Ra's al Ghul. But what they're showing is, he starts eating the fruit, and he sees a kid who's hungry too, and he gives it to him. There's a generosity. He says, I never became one of them. Ra's al Ghul saying, I've never lowered, probably sees that I never lowered myself to him, but with him, it's I always thought about, when she said that, I was thinking, oh wow, okay, so here's this angry young man who basically going through this and having the League of Shadows training, it kind of exercised a lot. It was the perfect therapy to not be who Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows were,
right.
Where at the same time they're trying to brainwash him, they've overlooked who he really is.
Yeah, they repeatedly kind of, the great thing is they don't beat you over the head with it, but they repeatedly show you that every action that someone that is like that to want to seek, justice and revenge that quickly, the film completely, not contradict, but it shows that it's the wrong way. It's the wrong thing to do. When Bruce goes to the court with the gun,
yeah.
Chances are he would do it if someone hadn't done it for him, and it robs him, like you said, it robs him of his revenge and his vengeance and everything.
But it also saves him from becoming just as much of a monster.
Yeah,
and I love the way the thing that I always thought was really cool about this is because anytime you had more than one villain in there, it's always a recipe for disaster, because and a lot of times they feel very shoehorned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We talked about the tenuous connection between Catwoman and
Penguin.
In the Burton movies, he wanted to take it in a fantastic direction, and no one really wants to ground it in reality, which to me all of a sudden is going to make things much more difficult. And I guess we're going to get to more of this when we talk Scarecrow. But he worked. Everything was integral to everything else, and as the movie went on, you found out, all right, so Falcone is the big bad guy here. He killed Chill to keep him from testifying against him. And at this, you're learning about you're learning about Falcone at the same time, Bruce is unwittingly in the nest of who would be his greatest adversary. Mm-hmm. And then later on, we find Craig, and he's working with Falcone But who he's really working with is Ra's al Ghul. I mean, everything just kind of weaves together really great, and it comes organically. It doesn't. It never once feels forced. It never, you know. The first time I saw this movie, I'm like, oh my god, this is really fucking cool. Because
sorry,
no.
But yeah, you mentioned like shoehorning in that they incorporated so many things. That was one of the things that I found myself just thinking, being so far removed, or I don't know how many years since Batman and Robin came out that this one did. But to have to have Zaz in there, to have Crane, to have of course you're gonna have Gordon, but to even have Falcone, all these characters that were great in the comics and they all were represented very well in their arcs, just to have them in there for people that haven't seen Batman or never knew much about Batman, to have all these characters already there in the first movie at the get-go. Ra's al Ghul, League of Shadows, it could be very overwhelming for some audiences, but from people that I know that don't read the comics much, they followed it very well, and it's Easter eggs for all of us.
And plus it weaves a very rich backstory. It gives you a nice real history of Gotham and the underground or the underworld.
And the cool thing is, with Zaz, okay, I didn't notice it the first time I saw it, and it took me a couple times seeing it, that his scars are real subtle. I pointed out to Beth today, I'm like, because every time Zaz kills, he does a check mark, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 with the slash across the thing, and it's really clever because it's not all over his face, but in his neckline, you could see that. So it isn't, as you said, it's an Easter egg for those of us in the know. But if it was much more obvious, if it was around his head, the audience would be probably write it off, but it would kind of be much more what the hell's going on?
Yeah. That's rich. I mean, one thing too that I'm glad, this one thing that I love with the Nolan universe is the incorporation of Lucius. Because, well, of course with Morgan Freeman, obviously, but that's also another character that's kind of obscure for anybody. They just think, if it's for a first Batman movie, they probably thought, it's a character they thought of, for this reason, for exposition, or to have this technology and everything. No, he's pretty well established.
Yeah,
and he's kind of badass. So you're gonna have all these things, all these characters that give great history, and there's more to it too that can give. For people that were new to the audience, that if they wanted to keep looking, it's a deep rabbit hole, man, and it's pretty cool all the way down.
It's such a rich and subtle thing they did, because when he puts down to Lucius, he's down in this little dark thing at his computer, and he turns on the lights, and there's this big basement full of all sorts of shit, and he shows Bruce the armor and the grappling gun, and it's just such a great moment. We rewound it because Beth and I both really love the part where he's like, I want to borrow it, and he got this 5 minutes. He pauses for a second for spelunking, planning to get any gunfights down there, which also, given the fact later on in the movie, makes me wonder, at what point did Alfred say, Lucius, would you keep an eye out for this, Bruce, because he's got this idea. I mean, because,
I like the allusion to their history, too, when Lucius makes that antidote for him.
Yeah.
It's like Alfred, he's like, Lucius, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
So, I just had this image of the two of them just, having breakfast, just, talking about the crazy shit that Bruce is getting into.
Yeah, and that's exactly, at what point did... it's, and the other part I love is when he comes back, he goes, we asked for base jumping. He goes, do you have any lightweight fabrics? He shows him the memory cloth, and he's just too expensive for the army. And he goes, I don't know. I don't think they ever tried to market it to the billionaire spelunking base jumping crowd.
Yeah, he's trying to come off as dumb, and he's just like, yeah, I'm not buying this, so it's just yours anyway, man. You do what you want.
Don't take me for an idiot.
Yeah.
And I loved on the Tumblr how they worked in the propulsion thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, making it a bridge jumper. I mean,
yes.
Because when this movie came out, I have to be honest with you, when I heard they were making a new Batman movie, I was not looking forward to it.
I felt the same way.
I didn't want to see it, and then they, images leaked online of in Chicago the Batmobile, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? It's this weird tank thing that's angular, and I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. What the hell? You know? Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes a little more sense than having one that's like long that really can't make corners, but what the hell? And then everything is in context in the movie. It's just like, this is a bridge jumping thing. We could never get the bridge to work, but this thing works fine. I'm like, that's brilliant. I mean, how really well thought out.
Mm-hmm. So they're giving reasons for his toys instead of just, oh, this looks cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, they showed him making the batarangs, and the batarangs are just kind of little, like, throwing stars, which would go along with his
ninja
training.
Which is, and I love how they give a reason for him to have the things on the end of his gloves.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like showing him, like, training with those while he's fighting, or with Ra's al Ghul. Instead of,
Yeah, I mean, those are real things, right? That's what real ninjutsu is used against, like, blades.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that, you know, when they said, you know, because he's like, I'm Dukat, and he goes, I work for Ra's al Ghul. But at the same time, it's like, to those of us who read, we're like, Ra's al Ghul. I'm like, oh, Ken Watanabe. And I'm like, oh, man, here's his Obi-Wan. Here's his, you know, Kane's mentor from Kung Fu. I mean, here's this guy. Mm-hmm. He's got to, you know... It was such a great subversion of expectation. And one of my favorite lines in the whole movie is when he comes back, when Bruce is at his 30th birthday party.
Yeah.
And it's like, Bruce, I have somebody you've got to meet. You know, this is Ra's al Ghul. And the guy turns around and he goes, you're not Ra's al Ghul. I watched him die. And you hear him going, you know, but is Ra's al Ghul immortal? Are his methods supernatural? And he goes, or cheap parlor tricks. And he goes, and then Bruce is like, I saved you. And he's like, I warned you about compassion, Bruce. I mean, this is like, I told Beth, because I'm reading Dune right now, and I'm like, is this kind of like the box instead of like, you know, they put the gum jabbar on your neck, and it's just like, okay, instead of feeling pain inside the box, it's just like, there's a little kitten stranded. If you move your hand, I'm going to kill you. You know, it's just like, I mean, if anybody's seen Dune, I mean, it's just like, you know, compassion's the mind killer. Sorry, if I'm going on esoteric.
I just wondered if anybody else heard that conversation while it was going on.
Yeah.
I watched you die. It's like, I saved you. Damn, your compassion would
I warned you about compassion, Bruce.
It's like, Bruce, what did you do for those 7 years? There's always that one party guest at a Bruce Wayne party who just like hears the Batman shit going on.
No one believes him.
I told you about telling stories.
Hey, there was a hint of domestic violence in the Narrows with the kid.
Oh yeah,
he was never hit though.
No, it wasn't hit. He was just like, I told you to get back in here.
Yeah, we were watching for that. And Beth also pointed out one more thing. She was a laugh riot to watch this thing with. She's just like when Ducat's like, you know, I had a wife. You know, she was taken from me. She's
yeah.
It's like,
I was waiting for that too.
When she's right. Taken for the rise of Ra's al Ghul.
Starts the League of Shadows, so his family stops getting kidnapped.
Liam Neeson, man.
I have a particular set of skills. I will teach them to you. You'll be able to know how to fight 6. You'll be able to engage 600.
To go back though with the, and then we mentioned that we see Bruce and Alfred. Well, Bruce making the batarangs, but both of them actually working together to put together the suit.
Yes.
Which shows great resourcefulness, but also provides really good just insight to how they strategize, how they work together, and have camaraderie. One of my favorite parts was when I originally saw it was Bruce using the when he was spying on I don't remember now who, but he was using a microphone, like a hidden microphone to listen in on the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And he had the earpiece.
Oh, an parabolic microphone? Or?
Yeah, and to put that into the, what would later be the cowl.
Oh, yeah.
Which is brilliant. And the use of I should have wrote these down, the gun.
The grappling?
The grappling gun. Was great. I mean, and also to show his inexperienced in the first few outings that he had.
Yeah.
Well, one with Gordon, and then the second one with Scarecrow was awesome as well.
Yeah, Scarecrow kind of fucked him up.
Yeah.
I love that scene with Alfred driving away while he's tripping balls in the back seat, and he's just like got the tears rolling down his cheek, not wanting to see Bruce like that.
Yeah.
He's like, it's like, because he considers him his son, so it's just like watching his kid like go through that.
And he's curled up in the back
Yeah.
seat.
Yeah.
And
Having
like
a nightmare. Having
yeah,
nightmares.
Yeah, and like wondering if they have gone too far, and if it's even worth it for them to keep going.
And again, that says so much, which is going to lead into when we get to Dark Knight Rises, because he is gung ho, and at the end when towards the end of the movie, after he's gotten Rachel back from Arkham, and he says, when you first decided to do this, the only thing that kept me from calling the men in white coats was the fact that it wasn't about thrill seeking. He goes, it wasn't. He goes, what do you call that? And it's the news with the car chase, and he's like, damn good television. I mean, it's totally like, he was just like, what your dad did, what Thomas Wayne did wasn't for anybody but, it was only for Thomas Wayne. I mean, there's this, it goes back to what we were saying, is this like, Alfred is this, Batman, what makes Batman so great is he's got this web of like people keeping him in check.
Yes.
And that's something that's going to be prevalent through all these movies.
That's what I love about Rachel coming into the fold, and like what she does in the next movie, being his inside person in in law, or the legal system. There we go.
Yeah.
In the DA's office.
Yeah. I had a lot of gripes with Rachel Dawes' character. I didn't think they needed to put a romance or spin on it, or even have them have grown up being, or be childhood friends. But I saw where they were going with it, I guess. As I mentioned before we watched Superman, I deemed her Rachel Dawson's Creek, because Katie Holmes' character, I wish it was Maggie Gyllenhaal if she was available in the first one, or someone else was cast, because I think it could have been there could have been much better chemistry with Christian Bale, because maybe I just didn't like the character. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Rachel does get sanctimonious at the end of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And especially in the next movie, she becomes nigh insufferable. But Katie Holmes, the problem with Katie Holmes is it's not that she's a bad actress, but she is always Rachel Dawson's Creek. She always looks like a high schooler or a college.
Yeah.
I don't care what movie she's in. It's always...
She didn't really bring that gumption I think you really need for a hard-nosed DA.
No.
To like
Yeah,
pull off,
Gotham
like,
especially.
especially in Gotham. Like for her to survive as long as she did is a fucking miracle.
Seriously.
Because I have a hard time believing that was the first time that she had people sent after her by Falcone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, considering she even says to Crane that this is like the third or fourth inmate, so she's already a seasoned veteran.
Yeah. Or maybe that's part of her shtick. Like she just keeps that baby face going to lull those criminals in a false sense of security.
Yeah, that is one thing that Flash said to Falcone's when they were thinking about putting a hit out on her. He said, don't you think we're kind of crossing a line even in Gotham? And Falcone's just like, well, anything can happen in a mugging.
Yeah.
Things just happen.
Bad things happen all the time. Sometimes... Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes...
Never underestimate Gotham.
Yeah.
Which is...
It is kind of a force of nature.
Can I just say that I love the design of Gotham this time around than the other movies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this actually feels like a living, breathing city,
Yeah.
akin to like what they did with the Superman movies, like the first two.
I agree. Actually, this is my favorite because it does slightly change in all the other the movies from here out. This is my absolute favorite rendition of Gotham because it's got they use a combination of models and CGI and and locations, and they blended them flawlessly. As I said before, it's we're all such geeks. It's kind of hard to never break that fourth wall because we're always like Yeah. But there is the Gothic architecture. I mean, when they show Arkham, when they they go to Arkham the first time, it's towering and it's Gothic without that is, that without that over the top aesthetic. It doesn't need to be any more than that. It just looks this really. It's this brick building that's like really like an institution. It's foreboding. It's depressing. It's all these things that Arkham should be. It doesn't need like to look like a Gothic, some Byzantine castle. It's it's a very simple building.
Or like a pair of hands holding up a observatory into the sky,
right? Or grotesque gargoyles on every building, things like that. Because Batman kind of becomes the one that stands over. I mean, that's one of the best shots of the film. Is him standing over the city, kind of statue watching over until he jumps into action.
And speaking of Arkham, I think we have to give total props to choosing Cillian Murphy as Crane, because and we were talking about this with Superman with Christopher Reeve, how like when he has the glasses on, he has this persona. When he becomes Superman, his body physically, the way he carries himself.
Yeah,
Crane just kind of looks like this weaselly little guy. And then one of my other favorite lines in the movie is when Falcone's trying to get the insanity plea, and Crane goes in. He goes, "What do you want?" And basically Falcone's like, "I want in." And he's like, "You know who I work for?" He's going to say that we should kill you. And Falcone's like, "Not in my town." And Crane just kind of looks at him, removes his glasses, and like goes, slumps. He goes, "You want to see my mask?" And he just totally changes persona before he even gasses Falcone with the tear gas. I mean, he did such a great job. He looks like this little weasel, but he takes his glasses off and he becomes Scarecrow, and he has this like menace, but he's not this tall, gangly person. He's this little guy.
I also have to give him props because everybody that got gassed by the Scarecrow freaked the fuck out. He was the only one that was just like kept his cool. Like when Batman's trying to interrogate him, was just like, "I'm sorry, Dr. Crane isn't in right now."
Yeah.
This movie was. I mean, we were talking in the last movie. We couldn't think of any supporting cast member, and like
there's too many in this one. I think.
Yeah.
But no. But the thing is, it's like Superman the movie, where there were so many supporting characters, and whether they're in the movie for 5 minutes or they're in the movie for 50 minutes,
they still left a lasting impression.
Yeah, and this movie juggled a lot of characters, a lot of main and supporting characters really, really well. You never once felt like any scene was any longer than it needed to be. Anybody's presence, every one of these characters, I wanted to see more of Falcone in that restaurant. I wanted to see what his day-to-day life was. I wanted to see what made Crane tick. Yeah. And to me, that's really powerful storytelling. That's really powerful for actor portrayal.
And it was so great actually having a competent James Gordon.
Yeah.
So the bowler hat wearing, mustache twirling
Who's
buffoon.
in charge?
Who's in charge here? You, sir.
You are, sir. Well, that's one thing I noted too, is we knocked so much on the terrible incompetence of the police forces in the previous Batman films, whereas this one, it's not that they're incompetent, they're just corrupt.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Like, Gordon even says, I'm no rat, in a city this corrupt anyway, who is there to rat to anyway? Like,
you got the Commissioner Loeb, and that there was good, people on the force. Yeah. Like even Bruce says, you're one of the few. So it's not a blanket, but it is definitely the thing where it's just like.
But like they have no room to move those good cops, and that's why Batman was such a godsend, because now they have somebody to rally behind, and somebody that's going to back them up and allow that.
You have to provide leverage, provide cover and everything.
And so they can slowly get that corruption out of there.
And this really, we want to talk about, for any minor disconnect between this and the next movie is like the way Gotham's portrayed, or the fact that Rachel Dawes is recast. The through lines through this are flawless. So, like where where the Joker in the next movie goes, let's backtrack a year, and it's like a year ago none of these people would touch you. It's like you said, it's just like he became a symbol, and everybody rose to the occasion to be that symbol.
Yeah, he was ready to retire by the time Dark Knight happened, I think.
Yeah.
Before shit just went off the deep end.
Yeah, well, they say every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah. So
And I have to jump to the end for a moment. Speaking of the reveal, I'm like, I still get goosebumps because when I saw this in the theater, DC took, because of where I work, DC took a bunch of us to, who are in I work with libraries and sell, get libraries suited with graphic novels and AV and, graphic novel buyer. And we were invited to go see the preview before it opened. And this movie was supposed to be open on a Friday night, and it got such great reaction they moved it to Wednesday night. So we saw this like the Tuesday, the day before it opened. And that last scene, even in like a little viewing room of 100 people went ape shit. And because, it's just like, this guy's got a flair for the dramatic like you, and we're all like, yeah. And he goes, leaves a calling card, and we're all like, yeah. And he turns it over, and everybody's like, yeah.
I'll look into it.
That's just endings can make or break a film. I mean, really, you can have a great movie, and in the last 5 minutes can really fuck it up. And this movie just kept piling on, and then left you with the best. I mean, no Batman fan can ask for better than him turning over and having the Joker card there. There's no better ending. I mean, this is so great.
Yeah, great way to, bring the stakes a little higher and exceed expectations with that. Because the film was just already a success in my mind when I finished watching it. And then for that, of course,
just icing on the cake.
That's just...
And ensure that I would be there opening night for the next film, which we were.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I went to see... I only saw this one. This is the only of Nolan's films that the Dark Knight films I only saw once in the theater. And I saw it, for the screening, and I didn't really get a chance to see it again because I was kind of poor at the time. But when it came out on DVD, it was in my DVD player for until The Dark Knight came out. I watched this movie over and over again because I was dying to see, what was going to happen next. And, as you can tell by my reaction, the ending, even now, 10 years, 11, coming on 11 years later, how many times I've seen this film, that ending never ceases to, give me such a thrill.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the end, so would that count as a kill for Batman? Leaving Roz on the train?
It's an inaction. Well, he does. Hey, it is admittedly an inaction. He goes, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you either. Yeah. Okay, so, hey, he's not strapping a bomb to him.
That's true. I mean, or burning him alive with the thrusters of his car.
True.
Or, he's not...
But he's helping cause the...
And he destroyed his daddy's train that he built.
Yeah. And,
you know who's going to pay for that? The taxpayers.
No, I'm sure Wayne Enterprises is going to pay for that. I'm sure. And, Ra's al Ghul's mountain resort there, that thing got blown up, but that wasn't really his fault. It was just, insufficient safety measures. We were talking about,
no OSHA.
Not OSHA compliant. But I did notice that when he was getting out of Arkham, he threw one of his little mines that blew up the wall. So basically, he did let 2 inmates out.
Well, he's just giving himself something to do after this whole thing gets hashed out.
Let's see.
He's keeping Batman in business.
Where's room 201? 201. These guys are these are like misdemeanors. These are low level. Oh, here you go. Okay, I'm just gonna come in here. These guys can go on the street, and they're not really gonna do much harm on the street.
It would suck if one of those guys that escaped was getting out the next day anyway. So now he's got to go back for walking out.
I mean, it's not like I'm letting out Hannibal Lecter. I mean, come on. So, But by the same token, he was going to, it is alluded to, and even by himself, is that when Ra's al Ghul says, my fate lies with Gotham, that he was going to die anyway. So,
He's kind of helping a guy out.
Yeah, he was gonna die anyway. So I mean, really, I mean, you know, out of all the Batman deaths, and
Yeah, this one was the most ambiguous.
I mean, considering that Superman in the last
Oh, yeah.
film killed 3 people with 1 pillar, so I mean,
It's true. His son definitely had a better kill than him.
yeah, seriously. Oh my god, it's so great talking about Batman Begins. I basically almost forgot about Superman Returns.
Been waiting for this day ever since we started this podcast. Oh, you guys have anything else to add?
Oh my god, I could talk forever about Batman Begins. I really could. I mean, from top to bottom, this movie is just such a fucking win.
So I guess it goes without saying that we're giving this one the point.
Batman took the lead.
I can't say enough good things about this, and I don't even want to go back to Superman Returns to continue to trash it. There's just
Yeah, I think it's best we leave that one behind.
I'm sorry, I keep promoting my wife here. It's not completely nepotism, but she did point something out with the movies we were going to review tonight. I'd be remiss. She said, you know, like Batman Begins in the name is basically removing itself from everything before it. And Superman Returns is basically letting, you know, if you look at the meta expectations of it, it's like Superman Returns, it's like we're carrying on for better or worse, for the worse, you know, the things that have come before us. So, you know, where Superman Returns, you know, was a rehash just in the title. This Batman was basically like, you know, worse, you know, you understand, I never really gave it a thought until she mentioned that, you know, Batman Begins was a good title to be like, you know, we are starting new. We're not calling back to anything else. We're not going to wink at the audience. We're not going to nod at the audience. We're going to pretend those 4 films did not happen. We're starting a completely new universe. And I thought I never really noticed how obvious just in the names these 2, you know, movies were. And you've got one derivative movie and you've got one movie that really just kind of breaks itself away from the comics while at the same time keeping it true to the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, this is the closest iteration we've seen to the comics. And it succeeded in every capacity in my book.
Alright, so there you have it. We got Batman pulling ahead or breaking the tie for now.
Yeah.
In round 5. So I'm Richard Perry.
I'm Luis Duran.
And I'm Chris Morgan.
We will see you next time for round 6. Man of Steel versus The Dark Knight. And I'm interested to see how that one's going to play out.
Yeah, me too.
That might be the toughest round yet.
Yeah, I think it will be.
Well, we'll leave it at that.
Music and editing by Chris Morgan. This has been a Lost Cinemas production. All rights reserved.